What's up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my Draftkings MMA picks for UFC Vegas 18. We have Alexander Volkov versus Alistair Overeem, and we have a 13-fight card, and this card has just changed drastically throughout the last week, and I researched this card like 2 weeks ago, and there's been so many changes, so many short notice replacements. The card's gotten a little crazy. That's why this video is coming out on a Thursday rather than like a Monday, like how I wanted to do it. But there's just been so many changes, and hopefully those are the last of the changes. But we're back in Vegas. So would not be shocked in the slightest if we lost a fight, knock on wood. But hopefully this card stays intact, because from where it's at right now, it's a pretty good card. I think it's going to be an exciting card. I think there's a ton of great fights, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of finishes as well, which are, as we know, always really fun from a DraftKings DFS perspective. So I'm really looking forward to this card, really looking forward to bounce back from the absolute disaster of a card from a betting perspective and from a DraftKings perspective, at least for me, which was last card, UFC 257, Conor McGregor, Khalil Roundtree. Just everything seemed to not go right. I mean, Joanne Calderwood did her job. Other than that, like, it was a really tough card, and I did do that contest, the free roll, $25 the first contest, and shout out to Randy, he got first place. And out of 200 people, and I was second place. I was so close to winning my own contest, which would have been funny. But shout out to Randy. Was able to contact a little bit of him. Still trying to work out some details. He does not have a PayPal or Cashapp, so might be sending him a free shirt. So shout out to Randy. That's awesome. First place, and going to be doing more free contests next week as well for UFC 258, which is going to be Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. So with all that out of the way, like I said, I'm really looking forward to bounce back. I like this card a lot. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think it's going to be fun. Lots of finishes, and we'll start with the fight doesn't go to decision lines, and we have some big ones here. So as we know, we're back in Vegas. That means we're back in the small cage, and we have the biggest odds here for the fight to end inside the distance. It's going to be Smith versus James, and I would be kind of surprised if this fight left the first round. We all know what Justin James is going to come in here and do, and remember, he came in on short notice against Frank Camacho about a year ago. He went in there and beat Frank Camacho in 20 seconds, and that's what he does in a lot of these fights. He's trying to get that early finish, and this is going to be at a catch weight. I want to say at 160 pounds, and I think that James's last fight was at 145, so he's definitely coming in here on really short notice. He said he didn't have much of a training camp or any training camp at all, and he said he's been nursing some injuries, so hasn't really been doing any training. So that shows me that James really has not much gas at all, and when he's has a full camp, he barely has gas to begin with. So I think if James is going to win, it's going to be extremely early, and I can say the same thing for Smith. Smith is somebody that has a 100% finish rate. And the thing about James is he was finished by strikes, I believe, for the first time in his career, his last fight against Gabriel Benitez. But Smith is a finisher. I feel like he can finish here, and this is a fight I want both sides of. Mostly leaning towards the Devontae Smith side, and we'll talk about why in a little bit. But this fight, I would be kind of shocked if it did leave the first round. Next, we have Danilo Marquez versus Mike Rodriguez. Mike Rodriguez is somebody else with a 100% finish rate, I believe. Not all that hyped on Danilo Marquez. I think he's one of the worst UFC fighters in the UFC as of now. He actually got a win in his last fight against Khadis Ibragimov. And I don't know. He didn't look great in his last fight. I'm watching tape on him from the regional scene. He doesn't look great. He doesn't have any wrestling. Doesn't have any striking. Doesn't have any cardio. What he has is that BJJ in his back pocket. But I don't know if he's going to be able to get it there in this fight. And I really like Mike Rodriguez, especially at the price tag of $9,000. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But I feel like this is another fight that has potential to end very early. Alexander Volkov versus Alistair Overeem, a fight I do want both sides of. Of course, it's a heavyweight fight. Both guys have a lot of power. Overeem, somebody that's been knocked out 14 times in his career, so kind of on the chinny side there. My lean as of now is to Volkov, which is 8,600, but I will be having some Overeem for sure, 7,600. He has been pulling off some upsets as of late, and has been looking good. He's 40 years old, been looking really good, so I would not be completely shocked if he went 100 and beat Alexander Volkov, but the lean is Volkov for sure, but I do want a lot of this fight. Not going to go all in on it, but I will have a decent amount of it. So this fight has potential to be fight of the night. Both guys are absolute killers. Alexander Pantoja versus Manel Kape. Kape making his UFC debut here. This kid's legit. He's dangerous. He's a finisher. The problem is Pantoja has never been knocked out. So I think if Kape's going to win here, he's going to have to be the first person to knock out Pantoja. And I will say that Pantoja also has a significant advantage on the mat if he does get it there. So this is a fight I do want both ways. Pantoja typically likes to stand and bang with his opponents, which I would not recommend here. So both guys definitely have a path to victory. But whoever does win, I think it does score very well. I think it's going to be an absolute war for as long as it lasts. So getting into the core plays here, these are the plays I'm going to have the most exposure to, starting with Devontae Smith coming in against a really short notice Justin James. Devontae Smith has been training for this fight, which is something big here, and it is going to be out of catch weight, which is something to note, but Justin James, somebody that struggles with that gas tank, like I mentioned, in general, coming in on short notice, not a great sign. We did see him get finished in his last fight against Gabriel Benitez. Smith got knocked out his last fight against Kama Worthy, I believe it was, and I think he was like a minus 1,000 favorite in that fight as well. So, a lot of hype on this guy. I still think very high of him. I think he's going to have a massive reach advantage as well. I want to say it's about a 9-inch reach advantage here on Justin James. And I just think that Smith has more paths to victory. I think that if this fight leaves the first round, I think James' chances of winning go down tremendously. I think if James wins, it's going to have to be in the first couple minutes. If not, I can see Smith taking over, even see Smith getting a first-round knockout as well. So I love Smith here, 9,200. I think there's high finish upside. He has a lot of volume as well, 6.88 significant strikes landed per minute as well. So I like Smith a lot. I'm going to have a ton of them, and I'm going to have a ton of that fight in general. So interesting here, we have Ode Osborne at 7,800. He's going to be about a minus 210, minus 225 favorite in this fight against Jerome Rivera. And we just saw Jerome Rivera fight against Figueiredo's brother. And in that fight, I mean, this guy, he doesn't have great striking. He doesn't have great wrestling. I don't think he's landed a takedown in the UFC yet. And I'm just not impressed with the guy whatsoever. I'm kind of shocked that Ode Osborne, especially since he was training for a fight, I'm kind of surprised that Ode Osborne is only minus 210, minus 225 here against Jerome Rivera. I think Osborne has, a ton of upside. And I remember on the, it was a Conor McGregor and the Cowboy Cerrone card, and Ode Osborne was on the main card of the pay-per-view, and he said that years from now, people are going to be talking about me and not Conor McGregor on this card. And it was just funny because he went out there and lost to Brian Kelleher, and Ode Osborne's a very dangerous guy. He has finished 88% of his wins, 63% coming by submission, 25% coming by knockout. So I do think there is potential for him to finish this fight against Jerome Rivera. Rivera is somebody that I want to say he's been knocked out once or twice in his career. He's a big submission guy, but I just don't see him getting this to the mat. Even if he does, like Ode Osborne's pretty solid on the mat himself. So kind of surprised that Osborne's only minus 210, minus 225, but I really think he does get it done here. And at 7,800, you're giving me a favorite that is minus 210, minus 220. Somebody with good finishing ability on the first fight of the night. I'm probably going to be very high exposed to a guy like Ode Osborne. It's just hard to ignore seeing a big favorite there at 7,800, and this is really a fight I believe he should win. So going to have a decent amount of Ode Osborne, as will a lot of people. I mean, he's the favorite as an underdog. It's going to gain some ownership, but for a really good reason here. All right, Mike Rodriguez, 9,000, talked about him a little bit. I think he's the much better fighter. I think the skill level between the two, him and Marquez, is just fantastic. It's a big difference there. And Rodriguez also has a 100% finish rate, and we have seen Marquez knocked out before. And like I said, Marquez is somebody that he doesn't have wrestling. He doesn't have striking. He doesn't have cardio. And typically, this is the type of fighter that can go out here and beat a Mike Rodriguez. Somebody like a John Alon who can get the fight to the mat, work at the ground game a little bit. He lost in his last fight to Ed Herman by submission. But I just don't know if Marquez has the wrestling ability to get a guy like Mike Rodriguez down. So fairly comfortable with Mike Rodriguez here. I know it's hard to trust Mike Rodriguez a lot of times as a favorite, but this is just really a fight that he should win. If he does not win this fight, I'd be kind of surprised. So give me Mike Rodriguez, 9,000. I think he has a decent chance to finish this fight and probably finish it early as well with that 100% finish rate. And then Alexander Volkov, 8,600. Like I said, I'm going to have a lot of this fight in general, but it's hard to ignore the Volkov side, especially for me. Overeem's somebody that's been knocked out, like I said, 14 times, and a lot of people don't think that Volkov's a power puncher. He does have a 75% finish rate, 66% by knockout, 9% by submission. He has a brown belt in BJJ, and a lot of people think that I guess Overeem can take down Volkov, and I do think he can. I just don't know if Overeem has the cardio to take him down over and over again, because we saw in the Curtis Blades fight, Volkov was able to work his way up, really get Curtis Blades tired. Curtis Blades, somebody that has, one of the best gas tanks in the heavyweight division, so we've seen Overeem get tired in that Rosenstruck fight in the 5th round. He's like dead tired. So if he does go to that wrestling heavy pace on Volkov, sure, it could work at first, but I don't know if he has the gas tank to do it. And plus, Overeem's chin is just not there whatsoever. He has this shell-up defense where he backs up to the cage, just shells up and let his opponents tee off on him to get his opponents tired. Sometimes it works, sometimes he gets knocked out, but Volkov has a very good gas tank for the heavyweight division. He has a very good output for the heavyweight division. I really do like Volkov in this fight, and probably to get a knockout as well, so I'm going to be very high on Volkov. But it's really hard to ignore the run that Overeem has been on as of late, and I will have some of him as well. All right, getting to our GPP plays here, our tournament plays, Tamir Valiev going against Martin Day. I just think this is a really good matchup for him. Martin Day is somebody that's 0-3 in the UFC. He's been finished in 2 of those 3 matchups. I know he's 9,300, but this guy is going to bring a ton of volume. He's going to be looking for the finish. I know in his last fight he got finished himself by Trevin Jones, and in that fight he was like minus 500, minus 600, but everybody gets caught. It happens, but I don't know if Martin Day is going to be that one guy to catch him here. I think that Valiev has more paths to victory, whether it is maybe working in the ground game, taking down Day. If Day wants to take down Valiev, I think Valiev can get right back up, and I think on the feet, Valiev has more variety to the strikes. I think he's going to be throwing a lot more output, and I do think he's the better fighter overall by a decent margin. He will be at a 6-inch reach disadvantage, in a 4-inch height disadvantage, but Day is coming in on short notice here. So I like Valiev, 9,300, kind of a safe play. I think there is some upside. There could be a finish, but I don't mind him at 9,300 there. Carol Rosa, 8,700. I really do like this play. In her 2 wins in the UFC so far, she has combined 110 Draftkings points just because of the crazy amount of output that she does land. So far in 2 fights, she's landed 9.7 significant strikes per minute. We've also seen her mixing the takedowns in her last fight against Vanessa Melo as well. And I have seen on the regional scene where her opponent, Jocelyn Edwards, was taken down and controlled by Sarah Alpar. I think she was taken down like 10 times, something crazy like that. And I think that if Rosa wants, she can strike with Edwards for 15 minutes, and I think she can work in those takedowns as well, rack up those points, maybe rack up some control time. And Rosa is a black belt in BJJ as well, something to note there. So I really like Rosa, 8,700. I don't know how high owned she'll be, but man, she looks like a fantastic play. Just the amount of output, I think she has more paths to victory, and I really like her at 8,700. I think there's a ton of upside there. Alexander Pantoja, 8,300. This is going to be a war. I think whichever fighter does win this fight is going to score very highly. And the reason I like Pantoja quite a bit, especially maybe from a betting perspective a little bit more, but especially on DraftKings here, is the clear path to victory. The path to victory is written on the wall. I've seen Kape lose a couple fights due to him either getting controlled on the mat, getting taken down controlled, or I think he's lost by submission before as well. And Alexander Pantoja is absolutely legit on the mat, a legit black belt. His grappling is unbelievable. So if he can fight smart, get this to the mat, get it, I think he can possibly get a submission or just ride out the round on top. And if he wants to stand and bang with Kape, which he does in a lot of his fights, it's something he has a bad habit of, and it could work, it could not, but that's Kape's one path to victory, is landing a hard shot, putting out Pantoja. But the thing about Pantoja and why I like him here is he's never been knocked out, and he's faced absolute killers. He's faced some really good competition, Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno, guys like that. So he's faced the best of the best. So I think this is kind of a tough test for Kape to come in here on his UFC debut, but I think he's more than worthy of it. I think the UFC thinks very highly of him to put him in this matchup against Pantoja. But Pantoja does not fight smart. That is giving Kape a path to victory here. Next, we have Cody Stamann, 9,200. I don't hate this play. Don't hate the price at 9,200. He's a big favorite. I want to say he's minus 500. Clear path to victory, and that's taking down his opponent, controlling him. I think he can get multiple takedowns. His top control is not great, but so I think he can get like multiple takedowns there. So that's good there against Askar. So I do think a couple takedowns, a lot of ground control, maybe some strikes. I can definitely see him paying off that 9,200, especially with the new control time stuff and a bunch of takedowns. So don't mind staying at 9,200. We're not going to get a finish or nothing like that, but he should win a decision, and it should score decent. And then Diego Ferreira, 8,200. So I'm kind of struggling with this fight as a whole, Ferreira and Dariush, but I do know that I want this fight in my lineups. 8,200 for Ferreira and 8,000 for Dariush. When these guys win, they're scoring pretty decent on DraftKings. I'm kind of leaning on the Ferreira side, not by much at all, just due to the fact that he's going to be throwing more volume. He may not be the better striker, but the volume is going to be there. He's going to have the better durability as well. Don't know what will happen if this fight hits the mat. I know they fought before in like 2014, and Dariush did get the better of the grappling, but if this fight hits the mat, I don't know who's going to get the better of who. Both guys are legit grapplers. I think that Dariush does have the better wrestling, but slightly leaning Ferreira. I think if he does win, it could be by knockout. I mean, we've seen Dariush hurt before a couple times. We've seen him knocked out a couple times, like 2 or 3 times, so Ferreira is definitely something I'm looking at, but I will be playing my fair share of Beneil Dariush as well. All right, Manel Kape talked about it a little bit. If Pantoja comes out here and strikes with him, he could get caught, and Kape is somebody who we want to target on DraftKings just because of his fighting style. He's going to want to go out there and get a finish, and that's what we want to target. So Kape, 7,900, if he does win, it's probably by knockout. It's probably because he was the first person to finish Pantoja by strike. So Kape at 7,900 is something I'm definitely looking at. Beneil Dariush, he's been finishing fights as of late. He's been scoring very well as of late. And could he knock out Diego Ferreira? I mean, he could. Ferreira has been knocked out before, and Beneil has been looking, unbelievable as of late. So I would not be shocked in the slightest if he did go out there and get a finish, but I think it's going to be a really good fight. It's a really close fight. I want to play both sides, especially at this 8,200, 8,000 range. I think either guy can score fairly well. Alistair Overeem, 7,600. He's been on a run. He has a path to victory that is probably getting takedowns, landing some ground and pound. I don't know if he has the cardio to do that, but maybe he does get it down to the mat. Maybe he does get a finish on Volkov. More so leaning on the Volkov side, but it's really hard to ignore the upside of Overeem, especially in a heavyweight fight. Anything can happen. Both guys have some serious power. We have seen Volkov finish before, so don't hate Overeem whatsoever at 7,600, although he's going to gain a ton of ownership just because he's the underdog and just because he's Overeem. I think he's going to be probably the highest owned underdog on the whole slate. So something to think about there, but I think he's in play, but I'm more so on the Volkov side personally. Laura Procopio, 7,700. So in her fight against Carol Hosa, she landed a ton of significant strikes, and I think she can do the same here against Molly McCann, somebody that is pretty hittable. I remember Priscilla Ketchup beating, landed so many significant strikes on Molly McCann, almost finished her by doctor's stoppage in that fight. So I think Procopio has some decent hands, and for what she is, she's a grappler. I mean, she's a black belt in BJJ. She was not able to get the fight down to the mat in the Carol Hosa fight. I don't really like her wrestling, but if this fight does hit the mat, if Molly McCann wants to test the ground game of Procopio, I think Procopio definitely can get the better of her, or if Procopio can get the fight down to the mat herself, I think she can have some massive success down there. But if it does stay standing, which ultimately it probably does, even though McCann does have a 33% takedown defense, I think the striking will be very, very close. I think there's going to be a lot of output, and I don't hate Procopio whatsoever at 7,700. And then finally, Jocelyn Edwards, 7,500. She seems like a pretty decent fighter here, coming in on short notice, which does scare me because we did see in her last fight against Yanan Wu where she did slow down in the third round, and I've seen fights where she does slow down as the fight goes on. And I do think Hosa has the better path to victory, but Edwards is pretty dangerous. She's finished the majority of her fight, although it hasn't been the best competition, but she does have a 80% finish rate, which is pretty good for the women's division here. But Hosa, she's never been knocked out. She has been submitted before twice. Maybe she could get submitted, but Hosa is a black belt now, so I don't know. Don't mind Edwards at 7,500. I feel like whoever wins this fight, it's going to score pretty high, but more so leaning on the Rosa side. But the 7,500 for Edwards is kind of interesting to note there because that price is pretty cheap there, in my opinion. So Edwards is somebody I'm looking at as well. Pump plays, this is the definition of a pump play. Justin James is going to go out there in the first couple minutes trying to get that first round finish. Can he do it? I think he can. I mean, he's done it before. Frank Camacho came in on short notice. Same thing here. We did see Devontae Smith get sparked by Carmel Worthy in his last fight. So, yeah, it's definitely possible. He definitely has power to do it. Devontae Smith has been finished in both of his losses by strikes. So, I think James is live for sure, but only live for a couple minutes, and maybe that's all he needs. So, if we are looking at a 60-second bonus, I mean, James is somebody in that category can definitely hit that. And at 7,000, I think any type of win by finish is going to get you in the optimal lineup. Sungwoo Choi, 7,100. I think this fight's going to be a lot closer than people think. I don't really get the $7,100 price tag. On the feet, I think it's going to actually be close. A lot of people think that Zalal is just going to be able to easily take down Choi, control him like it's happened in his past couple fights, but against Evloev, one of the best prospects in the game right now. I want to say he's like 14-0. And Gavin Tucker, a black belt, a very good grappler, decent wrestler. And I don't know if Zalal's on the... I mean, he's not. He's not on the same level as those guys when it comes to the wrestling grappling. And just watching the Zalal fight with Jordan Griffin. Jordan Griffin's somebody that doesn't have the best takedown defense. I want to say it's like 60%, something like that. He wasn't able to take down Jordan Griffin. And Choi's somebody that was training for a wrestler in England. And I do think Choi's takedown defense is going to be on point here. I think that the striking is going to be close, like I said. And Choi's going to have a pretty decent size advantage as well. He's 6 foot, which is pretty crazy to think about. So Sungwoo Choi is somebody I'm definitely looking at the $7,100 price tag. And then other pump plays, I think Clay Guida is a fine pump play against Michael Johnson. And I think Frankie Edgar at 6,800 is something else to look at. But these are the two I'm looking at a little bit more there. And then fades, Yusuf Zalal. I mean, he's not a finisher. No finishes in the UFC. Couldn't even finish. Slippery, Pete Barrett, 9,100. I don't think he's going to get many takedowns. It's really hard to pay for the 9,100 of Yusuf Zalal. Hopefully people play him because people love Yusuf Zalal, but I think this fight's going to be razor thin, razor close here. So give me Yusuf Zalal as a fade here at 9,100. I wouldn't be shocked if he lost this fight as well. All right, just I'll remind you guys that it's always a great time to become a member of my Patreon and receive full access to my model. It has all the stats on the fighters, my premium projections, my GBP lineup percentages, my Draftkings article, which will be dropping soon, and my Patreon-only Fight Day live stream. This is something new that I've added as of late, and then access to Discord as well. I think I have like close to 300 members in there, so sign up. The link will be in the description below. Very affordable pricing, and lots of extra content on there if you are looking for some extra content. If not, make sure you do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you have not yet. Would appreciate that a ton. Going to be doing another giveaway next week for UFC 258, Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns, which should be a good card, and I have started to look into that already. So, with that said, good luck. Really looking forward to this card. It should be fun. Should have a lot of finishes and a lot of high Draftkings scores, and good luck on Saturday.